Greetings, everybody. Mike Wilkerson here from the Two Guys Talking Fangbanger Podcast, True Blood Transfusion segment, where we feature feedback from you, our fans. I'm here with
David Creek, the host of the Fangbanger Podcast.
And we just got done reviewing episode 11,
Soul of Fire,
which was a great episode. And remember, you can listen to the audio podcast of that review by clicking the links right above us here if you're at fangbangerpodcast.com, or you can go over to our Facebook presence, go to Facebook and search for Fangbanger Podcast. You'll see a picture of Sookie wearing a couple of Two Guys Talking headphones and then leads into her neck. That's the Fangbanger Podcast from Two Guys Talking. What we're going to get straight to now is fan feedback. David, are you ready?
Absolutely, let's go.
The first piece of fan feedback we have today is from Becky in Tuscaloosa. Becky writes that... you'd said way back in episode 4 that you weren't sure where the writers were headed, but knew that a combination of powers would save the day. We did. And yeah. I think that it speaks to some of the other feedback that we've gotten also this week, where a lot of people think that the season has been very, very predictable. And I think looking at your feedback, I can't disagree with that. I'm not one of those people that finds a lot of trail to follow. I think it may just be I'm too much in the moment when I'm watching television series. But I can't disagree with you, and many people do agree with you there, Becky. You also write, after seeing episode 11, it looks as though Jesus has saved the day all by himself, essentially with the help of a dead body thanks to Marnie. What do you think they'll do with the last season ender next week? Loving your deliciously Goonie podcast, Becky from Tuscaloosa. Thank you so much for writing, Becky. What do you think?
Becky, I would have to agree that the use of Jesus in this episode was magnificent. I found him to be, my high point as far as characters go. The fact that they killed the villain in the episode before the final episode is, one, not something I expected, and two, sets up a whole completely different dynamic for the finale, because we see Marnie possess Lafayette at the very end. So how they're going to do, who is going to save the day at the end, is completely up in the air at this point.
Right. And I think it would be even better knowing that they began this season finding out that there was going to be a season 5 before the season was finished is a total thumbs up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't tell you what that provides to television. I wish more television series could do that. More importantly, I wish more studios could do that for the shows, because you would build so much more validity inside of the season, especially with strong story writing. You're seeing the perfect sample of that, in my opinion, where, 5-6 episodes ago, we were giving 6s. This most recent episode, we have an 8 from David and a 10 from me. I thought this episode was outstanding, mostly because it provides you with so many different samples of why you need to be watching True Blood. It was a great episode.
It was a really good episode.
I hope that answers your feedback, Becky. And remember, if you have other questions, you can send it right to us by going to our website at fangbangerpodcast.com. Click on the contact button on the top right-hand side of the page. Fill out the quick web form just like Becky did, and let us know what you think. True Blood News. Our first True Blood News note. Biting remarks from Alexander Skarsgård. This was an article that I found inside of my True Blood Google search. And inside of there it says, True Blood actor Alexander Skarsgård, who plays Eric Northman in the hit HBO vampire show, has revealed that he is often asked by fans if he would mind biting them. However, Alexander has refused every time, as he does not want to have to go around biting every fan he meets.
This harkens back to when Nelson Ellis refused to sign a woman's breast.
Yeah, they were being propositioned, which he provided edict against, which I'm a total fan of.
Okay, I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of this show. I've read now several of the books. My wife and I watch every episode. It's appointment television. We love it. If I was given the opportunity to meet somebody that worked on this show, I would take the opportunity to, tell them how much I appreciated their efforts and their work, and to thank them, bask a little bit in this, star haze that everybody gets when they're around famous people. The last thing I would do is ask them to swap bodily fluids with me. There is something called decorum and taste, and you should express it when you're around people you do not know. even if this is somebody you watch on television every single day, and I do know people who watch this show every single day, they will rewatch episodes, they don't know you. You are a stranger to them, and I think it goes without saying that a lot of people have completely lost their mind when it comes to good manners, and quite frankly, they'll appreciate you more as a fan if you take it upon yourself not to treat them as, in this case, a chunk of meat.
Right. You have to remember that, and we've talked about this in at least 2 or 3 episodes of the True Blood Transfusion, is that these are characters. These are actors that are providing you with a character portrayal on television. As much as you think that the characters are real because you watch them and you're so endeared to them, and oh gosh, I love them, and it doesn't make any difference. They are only an actor providing you a character and collecting a paycheck. I know how incredibly devastating that may appear to so many people.
It's still real to me, damn it. It's still real to me.
But it is. It's just a portrayal, and you must remember that this is all a business. So in particular at those conventions,
yeah, absolutely,
you must remember that if those actors get any vibe that they don't like, they won't go back.
No, that's it.
They will not go back. In particular for sites that cause them problems continually, they won't go back.
Yeah.
They will not go back.
And you'll lose your access to them. And quite frankly, having bumped into some people, I'm on staff for Archon, which is St. Louis's large sci-fi and fantasy convention.
Yeah.
And having bumped into some of these people before, if you treat them graciously, they will treat you the same way, and they'll come back, and they won't limit their exposure to you, which is, quite frankly, the great part about seeing these people is you get to have exposure with them, FaceTime, and you get to get something more out of them than what you do reading something on the web or watching something on television.
Yeah, but again, just remember that this is all part of a business for them, period. They don't go to conventions because they love going to conventions. Oh, and I love my paycheck. That's not how it ever works. There's always a fine line between enjoyment and it's a job. And all of these people are providing you with the piece of a job, in particular at those fan conventions. So please make it welcoming for them. That's a great piece of news because, again, it gives total sample of what the actors are going to do for you. So please, stop acting Alexander Skarsgård if you wouldn't mind biting you. On to the next piece of fan feedback. We have Winslow from San Diego. Winslow writes, "This week's cliffhanger was easily good enough for a season-ending episode."
I agree with that entirely.
I thought that made this episode. I have been lamenting this entire season that the cliffhanger asterisk that drew me into season 1 of True Blood, or into True Blood in general with the entire run of season 1, was what this season needed. And so here it is. It's providing you with something that's dragging you into the next episode, except, of course, you don't get to see it for 6 days.
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is the cliffhanger asterisk, and it was done perfectly inside this episode of True Blood. Winslow continues, "I can't wait to hear your podcast this week." Well, you know what? We just finished it, Winslow. And the scores, if you've listened to this episode of the True Blood Transfusion, you know the scores. But if you don't, you'll find out what it is soon. I'm also wondering, Mike had said that he's not a vampire/horror fan. Does True Blood provide more insight into a franchise he's never really embraced or had interest in? No.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with that. You know,
No.
having a much deeper interest in science fiction, fantasy, sort of mind-bending stuff, and having a fair amount of vampire literature. I've read a great deal of Anne Rice. Oh no!
Pay no attention to the
Pay
bell
no attention
behind
to the
you.
clock. And I've read a great deal of Anne Rice, and I've read some other stuff, some Poppy Z. Bright. I'm sort of a little bit more into vampire and horror and supernatural fiction than I think Mike is. But True Blood really sets itself apart from the rest of that genre, mostly because of the quality of writing and the people involved in the creation of the show.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. And your specific question was, does it provide me more insight into a franchise he's never really embraced or had interest in? You have to remember that when I started True Blood, I started dry and only jumped in at the behest of David. And the reason I jumped in at the behest of David is because I jumped in at the behest of another couple of people that I trust to understand what I do and don't like, and all of them understood that I love intelligent writing inside of television. And there's no doubt about it. The first 2 seasons in particular of True Blood are stellar writing.
Oh, yeah.
They're wonderfully written, and there's something I always encourage people to go and watch openly. It will actually help you get over the bump of not really wanting to watch vampire stuffs. Again, the sample is, we revealed that inside of this most recent review, that my father's only seen 2 episodes of True Blood. He's seen the first episode of True Blood ever, and then he's seen this most recent episode of True Blood. And he got kind of the inquisitive eyebrow, which I have inherited from him, and that's a good thing, because prior to that, he's way more of a horror fan than I am. But he actually saw the different flavor that you get both from the first season of True Blood and also this most recent episode of True Blood. And it's something that will definitely capture you and give you a completely different appreciation and more insight, but not into the horror franchise. It's not that I don't consider True Blood not horror, but it's something way more than just horror.
Absolutely.
There are so many indicators inside of horror that I don't even really see inside of True Blood. It's way more supernatural than it is horror.
I agree.
And I like that, because I don't like that horror.
The slasherness. Yeah.
It totally doesn't grab me at all. I'm not scared. I'm more disgusted. I'm realizing that I'm wasting my time when I go and watch those things. Winslow continues on. I'm also wondering what you two thought of the most recent Fright Night film. Have not seen it yet. In fact, David mentioned something about Fright Night this evening.
Yeah, I've gotten my confirmation email. In fact, just while we were sitting here, that Fright Night is on its way to my very mailbox tomorrow morning.
Awesome.
I use Netflix. It's only available on DVD delivery right now. We're going to pop out under the Fangbanger Podcast banner review of the original Fright Night.
Perspective review.
Which is a really, really, really classic piece of of horror.
It's how camp should be done inside of modern day, and it's not, because it would fall into the scary movie category currently.
This takes that tact without becoming a full-on parody
farce,
and that's something that I think is wasted and over and done with. Yes. And then after that, we'll get to the newest Fright Night, starring Colin Farrell and
Superbad guy,
the McLovin from Superbad, and Chekhov from the new Star Trek is also
right.
in that.
I've forgotten about that. We're also going to sandwich in the Shadowland movie from the Pirate Media Group, which you can find out more by going to IMDb and putting in Shadowland. You'll get the entire jacket on the in full movie, featuring actors from here in St. Louis, as well as all the behind the scenes people that are right here from your St. Louis.
Yep.
Great stuff, and again, thanks, Winslow. Really appreciate that. Our next piece of True Blood news refers. I was going to refer to a couple of news items that I found at a particular website that we really, really like. The problem is they're rife with spoilers.
Yeah.
And so it's becoming more and more desperate to find news that is not spoilerific, especially this close to the end of the season.
Right. And I think also part of the problem may be with there is no news that isn't yet reported that isn't directly related to the next episode.
Right.
Occasionally we'll hear something, one of the actors is doing some side project or is in a new movie coming out. But most of the stuff that's foretelling of what's going on this season or what's coming up next season is pretty much out there. So I think most of the sites are now falling back on the, I got to put some new news out, and unfortunately all I've got is how the series ends. No thanks.
Yeah, well, a big no thanks. For those of you that haven't followed Two Guys Talking ever, you'll know our hatred of spoiler stuffs. So just remember that, in general, while you're getting a review of an episode that you've already seen, there will never be spoilers inside of Two Guys Talking Dumb, and that's totally intentional. If you're looking for spoilers, there's an entire listing of websites at our website, fangbangerpodcast.com, that will provide you links to all of the websites that provide gargantuan spoilers, game over, game-ending spoilers, and we totally hope you enjoy them.
Right.
We just do not.
We don't go there.
Right. The last note I have is I just wanted to say again outright that we really appreciate Dan Eubanks for providing us not with only 2 tracks of music that we used in our most recent episode of the Fangbanger Podcast reviewing True Blood, which you can listen to right now by clicking the link right above us. And that'll review episode 11, which was Circle of Walking Fire.
Soul of Fire.
Soul of Fire that you can listen to by clicking the link right above us. And again, super thanks to Dan Eubanks.
Thank you very much, sir.
Really great stuff. It is a great front end and a back end for the show. But remember, you right now can listen to all 4 tracks that Dan provided us by clicking the links here at our Facebook presence. So go, if you're not at our Facebook presence, if you're at FangbangerPodcast.com, remember to go to our Facebook presence, and you can listen to all 4 of the tracks that Dan Eubanks and his fine crew provided for us that have now become our True Blood our Fangbanger Podcast theme music. And it's great stuff. It's the perfect flavor that we were looking for, that kind of twangy, hipster, southern rockness.
I agree.
That really fits the bill. And again, our thanks totally, Dan. It's really great stuff. To wrap up this edition of the Fangbanger Podcast, the True Blood Transfusion for the Fangbanger Podcast, I just wanted to remind everybody that we've got the Dexter podcast coming up.
Yep.
It's the perspective review of Season 4 of Dexter that leads us straight into October 2nd's live viewing of Dexter on Showtime. Remember, we're going to be doing an entire live capture hour-by-hour review for Dexter this entire season for Showtime. So make sure you don't miss that. We're also going to have the Fright Night reviews that we talked about for the Fangbanger Podcast, as well as Shadowland, that's right. And remember that now that we're 60 days in, all of the full summer movie review, perspective reviews are coming straight away for Two Guys Talking, because we now have the time to push those through.
Go to the number 2, guystalking.com, which is sort of the parent website for the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network. And we'll be rolling out just about every big movie that came out this summer. We'll have reviews on them. Thor, Captain America, what were some of the other ones?
Captain America, Thor.
Definitely Captain America and Thor.
All of the X-Men stuffs. Remember, we've already had...
X-Men First Class.
X-Men First Class, as well as X-Men 3 we're going to be releasing to give you a big old sandwich of X-Men that you get to take a big bite of. We're also going to have a couple of other surprise reviews. Transformers is another one that we're also going to be pushing.
Yeah.
Lots of feedback wondering where that one is, and it's coming. It's an outstanding film, and I can't wait to review it. So that wraps it up for this episode of the True Blood Transfusion. Remember that we're looking for your input via the Fangbanger Podcast, as well as all the other Two Guys Talking properties. You can send your feedback to us right now by going to twoguystalking.com. Click on the contact button at the top right-hand side of the page. Fill out the quick web form and let us know what you think about either True Blood or anything that's covered inside of Two Guys Talking. I'm Mike Wilkerson, one of the Fangbanger Podcast hosts.
And I'm David Crete, the host of the Fangbanger Podcast.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Night.